Once we won this war, we'd probably have to assign policing units to make certain that the conglomerations don't war over the salvage rights. Sol was riddled with corporate conglomerations that were more bloodthirsty than even the Delouran. Hell, they'd probably lobbied for the Delourans' extinction to try to get mining and colonization rights to their home world. All that's above my pay grade, though. I'm just a captain of a warship that's watching a battle play out instead of fighting in it. Still, it beats being stuck aboard the Thanatos at the moment. That ship is absolutely lousy with AI right now. And if I had to listen to another argument between John and Omega, I was going to lose it. I sighed as I remembered AI John. What the hell had possessed it to choose the most motivated personality possible was beyond me. The Marines get a kick out of him, and High Command adore him. The rest of us hate him. He's a dick. I was surprised when his avatar turned out not to be a penis in a uniform. Might suggest that to Omega. No, I'm sure that there'd be consequences to that, and officers shouldn't be thinking about pulling pranks either. But it beats just staring at the TAC map, watching enemy blips disappear. The OU was fighting back as hard as they could, but it's impossible to outmaneuver US ships when you have outdated warp tech. Target identified. Fire. Never mind. Sword got it, Babanin said in a sad tone. We'll get him next time, Lieutenant. Keep your eyes peeled, I said encouragingly. I reminded myself once again of the importance of our assignment. On top of the Admiral and the fleet leader, there are currently several other Republic officers on the Thanatos coordinating their ships with ours. They weren't exactly doing a great job, though. The U.S. had taken about 100 total casualties, but theirs were in the thousands. Honestly, it was a miracle they hadn't been routed yet. They had their ships in firing lines. Who does that? There isn't a single tactical benefit to it in space. On the other hand, their mobility is limited, so it makes sense that they're not zooming around the battlefield. But a spherical formation would make more sense than a fucking line does. I watched as some of the OU ships tried for a flanking maneuver. Blue ship indicators suddenly appeared behind the red ones, and the red ones started to rapidly disappear. If our ships hadn't interfered with that, it would have been disastrous for the Republic's forces. But that's above my pay grade, too. I scratched the back of my head as it dawned on me that Tim might be right about seeking a promotion. I'd missed the Valor and its crew, but I'd been thinking more and more about things that I have no business thinking about. It's not that being a captain is boring or unfulfilling, it's just, I feel like I can do more than I'm doing now, I guess. That fucking ridiculously cheerful robot. Even if I got the star on my collar and was reassigned, it would probably follow me. I wonder if all of the AI are obsessive. Omega is obsessed with humans. Tim is obsessed with me, John is obsessed with duty or whatever, and I don't know enough about Violet to tell one way or another. Target ident. Damn it, Sword got him again, Babanin said while slapping his knee in sarcastic frustration. Let them have it. We've had more than they have anyway. It's time to share. Yes, sir, he replied in a mockingly deflated tone. How many left now, Tim? I asked out of curiosity. 11,247,312. We've destroyed... Nope, stop that. But sir, Tim said, doing an impression I was unfamiliar with. That'll be all, Tim? Yes, sir. I eagerly await your next enemy casualty count request. God, we're running through them quick. They'd started with about 5 times our number half an hour ago, and now we were nearly even. There really is something to be said about rapid mobility in ship-to-ship combat. I'm thankful that our FTLDs are back in action. Unlike the Republic's FTLDs, ours only use a certain amount of charge per jump. The amount of charge is dependent upon many variables, including the distance between the warp points. The amount of variables makes the overall charge depletion pretty random, though. We can typically get 10 jumps in system before having to hang out and recharge. Sometimes it's 9, sometimes it's 11. Other times it's 14 or 6. The worst part is that it sometimes changes between jumps. So if your first in-system warp took 12% of your charge, there was no guarantee that the next would as well. No way to tell until you try the jump. Even the AI haven't been able to come up with an accurate predictive model. Not that it would be super helpful. It would take about as much time to check the prediction as it would to just try to jump. If you warp, you warp. If not, you need to initiate a recharge. Part of our command training covered this little curiosity. The manual says to charge whenever you get the chance, unless you don't intend to warp. Newer captains always kept their drives charged until they get reprimanded for wasting reactor fuel. The fuel's not that expensive, but it adds up pretty quickly. Target identified, firing, Babanin said rapidly. Ha! Target destroyed, suck it, Sword. Congratulations, Lieutenant. You beat them. Woohoo, I said in a monotone. Babanin gave me an exaggerated frown and said, Sir, it's important to keep up a competitive spirit. Yeah, sure it is, I smiled. I thought about asking Tim for another enemy casualty count, or rather how many were left, but there weren't enough to bother with it. I rested my head on my hand as I watched red ships disappear faster and faster as we began to outnumber the enemy. Then, they were gone. And that's that, I said. Prepare to return to the Thanatos. Aye, aye, sir. I sent the return request and waited for the response. Docking granted. I gave the order to return and sent a quick message to the other captains to do the same. We had successfully defended the Thanatos, and such a thrilling defense it had been, sitting around and taking pot shots at whoever gave us the opportunity. Clear at 280, clear at 110. All clear, sitrep, I ordered. 11 yellow lights and 1 green light lit up. Corpsman Yunk was the only green light because the corpsman wasn't using his ammo. Fair enough, that's not really his job. His job is to try to make sure we can use the rest of ours. Still, yellow wasn't so bad. Minor injuries and/or over half of your ammo used, but not on your last box. I looked at the growing pile of metal at the base of our hill. The first groups that had been sent just rushed us, firing their lasers as they went. Not smart at all, and now their circuits were everywhere. This last group, though, had attempted a fireteam rush. It would have been a smart move if their weapons had the capacity to suppress us for any reasonable amount of time. It had only been 3 days, and they were already mimicking us pretty well. I found myself wondering what they were going to try next when my helmet cut exterior sound and a giant plume of smoke and shrapnel erupted about 15 meters from the base of the hill. Artillery! PFC Johns shouted over comms. Everyone down, I ordered. You don't have to inform me twice, Staff Sergeant, Sergeant Int replied. I manually disabled the sonic safeties on my helmet to try to hear where the shells were coming from as another crashed around 18 meters away. No good. Going to have to try triangulation. We won't be able to get an accurate fix on them, but we'll get a search area at least. Squad leaders, triangulation. Need to find the general location of that artillery, I ordered. I saw Gruff's gauntlet peek up from his foxhole. I raised mine as well and triggered the sound localization software. The next shell hit exactly 12 meters away, according to my reading. Then the sound of the guns caught up to us. The reason that humans have 2 ears is to give us sound localization. Sound generally travels in a circular wave, and by assessing 2 points of a circle, you can triangulate its center. The more distance between the 2 points you get, the better the localization gets. That's why it's harder to tell where a noise is coming from when it's farther away from you. Even with 3 points, we weren't going to get an exact fix. But I got a reading, and so did Gruff and Int. About a half-mile wide indicator appeared about 10 kilometers away from us. Too far away for us to touch them, but that's not what I had planned anyway. I activated my command comms as the next shell hit. Hellfire 2-9er, this is Shocker Actual, over, I began. Shocker Actual, this is Hellfire 2-9er, go ahead. Sending tactical data for a search and destroy. Gun emplacements. How copy? I asked as I sent the approximate location of the enemy artillery. Full copy, received. Beginning the hunt, keep your head down, Shocker Actual, over. Roger, happy hunting, Shocker Actual, out. Another shell impacted, this time close enough for us to catch some dust. I brushed some dirt off myself as Lance Corporal Hart shook himself and turned to me. What's the plan, Staff Sergeant? He asked. I'll explain over comms, I replied while keying the comms. Marines, we've got a guardian angel on its way to turn those guns into scrap. Heads down until we're given the all clear. What kind of ordo are they going to use, sir? PFC Brent asked. I'm not a fucking sir, Brent. They're just going to use their cannons unless they've got non-nuclear missiles attached. They can't afford the EMP on this mission, I replied, making several assumptions. Yes, they can. The black boxes are hardened against EMP. Your shields aren't, though, Omega chimed in. Of course, the AI was listening in. The hell was taking it so long, how did it have enough time to chat? I shrugged off my annoyance as another shell hit about 10 meters from the base of the hill. Then I shrugged off some dirt. A nuke against a couple of guns would be overkill, Omega. The cannons will do the trick, and the Guardian Angel knows it. No need for code, Staff Sergeant, but I understand. You're arguing to increase morale. I sometimes forget that nukes are still kind of scary to organics, Omega said on my personal comm line. Especially this close. Anyway, the OU can't tap our comms anymore. I took that capability on day 1. Well, then what have you been doing for the other 2 days we've been here? I asked. Killing VI. There's quadrillions of them. That shut me up. 1 AI versus a quadrillion VI? Damn, Omega must be top-of-the-line tech. I decided to never fuck with an AI as another shell impacted 5 meters from the base of our hill. A piece of jagged shrapnel seemed to magically appear in the hill just above my foxhole. Hey, Staff Sergeant, you think they'll get there before we take a shell? Hart asked me. Yeah, Hellfire 29 is flying an ET-201 unmanned fighter. Getting there fast will be easy, the pilot won't take any Gs. The search is probably what's taking so long, but they'll make it, I said reassuringly. As if responding to a cue, a very lovely noise came from the direction of the cannons. The sound of 2 50mm autocannons that can fire 5,000 rounds per minute. A very satisfying art, even from a distance. The tense atmosphere immediately dissipated, and I could have sworn I heard Gruff say, "Thank God." Shocker Actual, this is Hellfire 29er. Mission successful, target destroyed. Returning to nest, over. Shocker Actual to Hellfire 29er, just in time, thank you. Out, I replied. Things settled down for a while, with the occasional patrol making an attempt on the hill. We took turns on watch, resting and cleaning our weapons on our downtime. Night crept up on us, and not a single one of us was looking forward to it. It wasn't just that the bots were harder to spot at night. They don't light up very much on thermals, and IR is useless thanks to the weather. The night on this particular rock brought storms with it. Bad ones. There isn't a single active-duty Marine who hasn't seen their fair share of bad weather. Hell World sees to that. These storms were particularly nasty, not because they had brutal winds and pouring rains, but because they also kicked up sediment like a toddler on a beach. Both the rain and the sand were traveling horizontally in whichever direction the wind decided to take it. The winds were so bad that our shields would occasionally take damage from the sand. I shuddered to think what this weather would do to bare skin. The toll on our equipment was harsh as well. The first night had seen Brint's rifle jam, sand in the barrel, clumped up and held in place by the rain that had followed it. We had to wait until the storm died down, just before dawn, before he could clear it. God damn it, if I never see a single grain of sand again, it'll be too soon. Hart bitched over close-range radio as he shook his rifle. Stow the belly aching and keep your eyes outbound. Rifle down unless you see the enemy. Keeps the water and sand from out it. I repeated myself for the 3rd night in a row. I've been meaning to ask, Staff Sergeant, isn't it more tactical to keep our weapons outbound? I mockingly tilted my head as I replied, how would it be tactical to have your weapon outbound if it jams when you try to fire it? I didn't know you looked up to Private Brint so much that you want to copy him. But Staff Sergeant, he's the picture-perfect Marine. Who wouldn't want to copy him? The Lance Corporal asked with the most sarcasm I've ever heard in my life. Haha, very funny. I'm gonna hit the hay. Kick my boot when it's my watch. Or if we see any action, I said as I leaned back and closed my eyes. Aye, Staff Sergeant. I closed my eyes and embraced sleep. Not too deeply, though. Didn't want to miss out on the action if there was any. My dream was being back home with my wife and kids with a strange addition. Gunfire, explosions, and the sound of lasers striking drowned them out whenever they tried to say something to me. I just smiled and nodded, not wanting to make them scared or sad that Daddy couldn't hear them. I don't know what I'd do if I made them cry. We're at a park, kinda like the one that's down the street. A picnic overlooking the play area. The kids are eating as fast as they can so they can go play. I tell them not to choke while trying not to smile at their antics. More explosions are their response. I turn to my wife and she shrugs at me, her sundress slipping over her clavicle. Beautiful. I love you. Gunfire's her response, but I play it cool. I know she loves me too. The kids finish their food and jump up. I can't help but laugh as they run toward the play area. I wave at them as they go, and my wife gently grips my arm. I turn to her and look deep into her beautiful blue eyes. "Wake up, Staff Sergeant," she says with Hart's voice. "Wake up, Staff Sergeant. It's your turn to keep watch," he says. Yeah, I'm up," I reply. Damn. Why is it that the best dreams happen when you're in the shit, and the worst dreams happen when you're happy? I cracked my stiff neck as I stood and took over the watch. Hart sat down, and it wasn't long before he drifted off, taking my place in dreamland. "Report," I said over the radio. 6 yellow lights blinked back at me. A yunk fired his weapon. I glared at Hart, told the little shit to wake me up if we saw action. I checked ammo counters. Most of us are good, but it would be wise to order a refill soon. Might as well. I activated the command comm, but someone was already squawking. "Is concrete actual fire mission, concentration Echo Golf 5 Tree 9er, enemy armor. 5 rounds, danger close. We'll adjust. How copy?" "Lieutenant Banjul. He's got me beat for dumb call signs for sure. They're not that far away from us. Calling an artillery strike on enemy armor. Glad we haven't seen any tanks yet." "Wait, we brought artillery?" "Hanura copies full." Oh shit, that's not artillery. I looked up at the sky and after a moment spotted 5 fireballs. Then I quickly switched back over to the squad radio. "Turtle up. We've got orbital support incoming," I ordered. I watched as helmets scanned the sky, paused for a moment, and disappeared in their foxholes. I took one last glance at the fireballs and ducked down. I placed a hand on Hart's shoulder so he wouldn't jump up in surprise when the first round hit. Then I waited. Macs are fast, but it's quite the distance between orbit and the ground. I tried not to grit my teeth as the tension rose and rose. Then the ground suddenly felt an inch lower than it was before. Even my helmet's sound dampeners barely helped as the shockwave rolled over our little hill. Then came the dust and debris. "What the fuck?" Hart shouted as the second round impacted. I managed to hold him down and hoped that the rest of the Marines were able to do the same to their partners. It wasn't just dust in the air, there would be stones as well. I couldn't help but get a little pissed off as the next 3 rounds impacted. It was like riding a grav coaster at a local fair, but involuntarily. I stood up once I was sure more rocks wouldn't be pelting us. "Report," I said over the radio. 12 yellow lights lit back up. Good. I took a moment to gather my wits and dust myself off. Then I checked our directory and found Lieutenant Banjul's personal frequency. "Concrete Actual, this is Shocker Actual, sitrep. Shocker Actual, this is Concrete Actual, we're still here, over." "Roger that, fuck you, sir, how copy?" "Full copy," Banjul replied with a laugh. "Sorry about that, forgot you were nearby. Won't happen again, over." "Roger, out," I replied as I cut the comm. Hart finished brushing himself off and looked up at me. "What the fuck was that, Staff Sergeant?" he asked. "A nearby squad called in orbital support, danger close. 5 Mac rounds, the piece of shit," I replied. Hart nodded and went to stand as the ground began to shake again. It was different this time. Slower, like when you zone out and snap back in to find yourself rocking side to side. Only it was everything else that was rocking side to side. "Earthquake?" Hart asked. "Yeah, prob." A thundering crash interrupted me as the shaking got a whole lot worse. I grabbed the edge of the foxhole to keep from falling over. The dust that was still in the air was blocking my view of the surroundings. "All units to exfil ASAP," Omega said. "Omega, what the hell is going on?" I asked. "We're leaving. Grab the box and go, double time it," it said as an objective marker popped up on my visor. "Go, now!" "Let's go, Marines," I shouted as I jumped out of the foxhole, pulling Hart up after me. "Chang, Boyle, grab the fucking box. Double time it." We ran through the dust and jumped over robotic bodies as we made our way toward the objective marker. The earthquake continued, knocking us to our knees every now and then. Visibility was poor, but the signature sound of laser fire soon rang out as we ran. Brief flashes of white light were soon followed by gunfire. We made it to the landing zone and took a defensive position as we awaited our shuttle. I went prone to avoid being knocked on my ass. The shaking got so bad that the ground had started slapping me hard enough to drain my shield slightly when the shuttle finally arrived. It couldn't land, but it was able to get close enough to the ground that we could all hop aboard. I helped drag the black box aboard and pulled Chang up while Gruff pulled up Boyle. After a quick head count, I told the pilot to punch it and we began to rise. I almost triggered the hatch but paused as we started to climb above the dust cloud. There were tears in the ground, like giant ravines that seemed almost bottomless. As we got a little bit higher, I saw something that made my blood run cold. At first I thought it was a tower. It must have come up from the ground because it wasn't there when we landed, but the shape struck me as odd, and I realized that there was only one thing it could actually be, the largest Mac I had ever seen, and then it fired.